There is a 100% chance that Earth will eventually become uninhabitable. The only question is when. This might sound dire, but believe it or not, this is a story about love. For 230 million years, dinosaurs roamed the Earth. It must have felt like forever. But one big flash, and 66 million years later, some of them ended up in a peculiar place called the Natural History Museum in London. Well, what's left of them anyway? Odds are, if the dinosaurs had a space program, they'd still be here. And yet, we've all heard this before. Why are we spending money on space when people are starving? Why are billionaires playing astronaut while rent is skyrocketing? Shouldn't we fix the Earth first? Well, here's the thing. What if I told you that space exploration might just be the one thing that actually saves us? Because the truth is, space isn't a distraction. It's a necessity. And if we ignore it, we could be making the biggest mistake in human history. This isn't just about Mars. This isn't just about Elon Musk. This is about something much bigger. Because here's the harsh reality. If we stay on Earth forever, sooner or later, we're done. One asteroid, one supervolcano, one global catastrophe, and it's game over. Just ask the dinosaurs. And let's be real. Posting thoughts and prayers on social media isn't going to help us one bit when an asteroid decides to come say hi. But this might. So if you think space is a waste of time, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you might just realize that this might be the most important thing we can ever do. Let's be fair. If you're someone who thinks space is a waste of money, I get it. On the surface, it seems like a no-brainer. Why spend billions on rockets when we have real problems? Poverty, war, climate change. I mean, we can't even fix traffic congestion, and we're talking about colonizing Mars. But what if space exploration isn't an escape, but an act of love? Love for the generations that come after us. Love for the planet we call home. Love for the idea that humanity's story doesn't have to end here. Space travel is often framed as a billionaire hobby. Rich guys playing with rockets while the rest of us are trying to afford groceries. So, at first glance, it's easy to think space is nothing more than a flashy, expensive distraction. But here's the thing. That argument completely falls apart when you actually look at the numbers. Take NASA, for example. Most people think we spend way more on space than we actually do. But in reality, NASA's entire budget is around $25 billion per year, less than 0.5% of the US budget. The military burns through that in 2 weeks. We spend more money on fast food, video games, and even pet food than on space exploration. So if you're mad about wasted money, NASA should be last on your list. And here's the kicker. Space exploration has already paid off in ways most people don't realize. You like GPS? That's a space tech. You like predicting hurricanes early? That's a space tech. You like clean drinking water? Yeah, that's a space tech too. Space isn't just about going to Mars. It's about pushing technology forward in ways that directly help life on Earth. Okay, but what about the big argument? Shouldn't we focus on solving poverty and climate change before spending billions on rockets? What if I told you that space exploration isn't stealing resources from Earth? It's creating more of them. The reality is, many of the problems we're facing, energy shortages, climate change, lack of resources, have direct solutions that space technology can provide. And the space industry is leading us to that future, while only having a yearly CO2 emission of less than 3% of what the aviation industry produces in a single day. Space isn't about abandoning Earth. It's about unlocking solutions that could make Earth better than ever before. Right now, everything we know, all of human history, every achievement, every failure, our hopes and dreams and everyone we know, exists on this one tiny blue planet. It feels stable, permanent, but the truth is, it's not. The uncomfortable reality is that Earth is fragile, and if history has taught us anything, it's that civilizations do not last forever. Let's start with the obvious one, asteroids. One massive rock from space is all it would take to end human civilization overnight. 66 million years ago, the dinosaurs ruled the planet. Then, in an instant, they were gone. And here's the scary part. It wasn't even the biggest asteroid to ever hit Earth. Today, we track thousands of near-Earth asteroids, but we don't have a reliable way to stop a planet killer. In 2013, an 18-meter-wide meteor exploded over Russia with approximately 30 times as much energy as the atomic bomb detonated at Hiroshima. It wasn't even detected in advance. The next big one? We might not see it coming. Even if we do, we might not be able to ensure that it will miss Earth entirely. But it's not just space rocks. The Earth itself can wipe us out. There are 20 supervolcanoes on Earth capable of ending civilization. The last big one, Toba eruption in Indonesia, triggered an ice age. And in geological terms, considering that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, the average occurrence of once every 100,000 years is merely a coffee break. And then there's the stuff we're doing to ourselves. Climate change is already reshaping our planet. But what if it gets worse? Rising temperatures, food shortages, mass displacement. It's not a distant future, it's already happening. Then there's the most immediate threat of all, ourselves. Right now, we have thousands of nuclear weapons, enough to wipe out the world many times over. And history has proven one thing over and over again. If a weapon exists, eventually, given enough time, someone will use it. So, what's the answer? Do we just sit here and hope for the best? Do we pretend these risks don't exist? Or do we take action? Becoming a multi-planetary species is not about abandoning Earth. It's about making sure we always have a plan B. If we can establish a civilization on another planet, we're no longer putting all of humanity's eggs in one basket. For the first time in history, we have a real chance to create a backup for civilization itself. And this is the machine that will make it possible. Starship is the first fully reusable, mass-produced interplanetary spaceship in history. It's not just a rocket, it's a transportation system designed to move millions of people beyond Earth. Think about what that means. For the first time ever, we have a vehicle that can take us to another world. And not just once, but over and over again. So why is this happening now? Why didn't NASA do this 50 years ago? The answer is simple: money. During the Cold War, we went to the moon because we had a reason. The space race. When that ended, the budget was slashed, and NASA was forced to take the slow road. But SpaceX isn't waiting for government funding. They're doing what NASA never could, building and launching rockets with commercial efficiency. SpaceX launched 138 times in 2024 and is responsible for over 90% of all Earth payload to orbit. This isn't just a step forward, it's a revolution. The truth is, we are the first generation in human history that has the viable technology to expand beyond Earth. For thousands of years, we've pushed beyond our limits. This is just the logical next step. So, we know we need a way off this planet. But why Starship? What makes it so different from everything that came before? Well, first of all, just look at it. This thing is a monster. At 120 meters tall, it's taller than a football field is long. Fully loaded, it weighs over 5,000 tons, and the tanker version, more than 7,000 tons. And the amount of stuff it can carry, 150 metric tons to orbit. That's more than 10 space shuttles combined. The entire International Space Station took over a decade and 36 separate launches to build. Starship? It could carry all the components of the entire ISS into orbit in one flight. But size isn't even the most important thing. What really makes Starship different is reusability. Up to the point of the making of this video, SpaceX has achieved the 20th reuse of a single Falcon 9 booster. Every rocket before this, disposable. You use it once, throw it away, and start from scratch. That's why space travel was so expensive. But Starship? It is designed to be fully reusable. It lands, refuels, and flies again. Just like an airplane. Imagine if we scrapped airplanes after one flight. Tickets would cost millions of dollars. That's exactly how space launches used to work. But with the reusability of the Starship, we're going from billions per launch to under $10 million per launch. That's 400 times cheaper than NASA's new SLS rocket. And this changes everything. Because Starship isn't just about Mars, it's about opening up space itself. Take this for example. The James Webb Space Telescope had to be meticulously folded to fit inside its rocket. That added years to development and billions in costs. With Starship, we could have just launched the entire telescope in one piece. This enables us to launch bigger, better space telescopes without folding them up like origami, allowing us to observe and understand the universe in unprecedented ways. we can build entire space stations in one go. We can send massive science labs, habitats, and factories into orbit at a fraction of the cost. And this isn't just for astronauts anymore. With launch costs this low, space travel will eventually be something regular people can afford. Think about air travel. A century ago, flying was a luxury only for the ultra-rich. Today, we take it for granted. And here's the crazy part. Starship won't just take people to space. It can take people anywhere on Earth in under an hour. A normal flight from New York to Tokyo takes 14 hours. With Starship, 45 minutes. That's not sci-fi. SpaceX is literally planning this. This is what Starship is really all about. Not just going to Mars, but unlocking the universe. Every great civilization expands. We crossed oceans. We took to the skies. We landed on the moon. And now, for the first time, we have the technology to become an interplanetary species. This is more than just a rocket. It's a key to the next chapter of human history. Alright, so we know Starship is an absolute game changer. It's big, it's reusable, it's cheap. But here's the thing. A rocket, by itself, isn't enough. You can't just launch people to Mars and hope for the best. You need fuel, you need infrastructure, you need a reason to go. That's where Starlink comes in. Right now, Starlink is an internet service, beaming high-speed connection anywhere on Earth. But it's actually way bigger than that. The same system that's bringing the internet to remote villages on Earth will also be the first communication network on Mars, meaning that long before the first humans arrive on Mars, there will already be a functioning internet. But Starlink is just one piece of the puzzle. The second piece? Refueling. Right now, we can't go to Mars with full load capacity in one trip. That's why SpaceX will utilize orbital refueling. Starships will dock in orbit, refuel, and then continue their journey. This means Starship can carry full cargo loads, full crews, and still make it all the way to another planet. It's not just a rocket anymore, it's an entire transportation system. But before Mars comes the moon. NASA has already hired SpaceX to use Starship as the next lunar lander. Back in 1969, the Apollo lunar module could carry 2 people and stay on the surface for a few hours. But the Starship can sustain the crew for a whole month. This means we're not just visiting the moon this time, we're staying. And once we can sustain life on the moon, Mars is next. Mars, right now, is an inhospitable wasteland. No oxygen, freezing temperatures, radiation exposure. But it doesn't have to stay that way. With technology and enough time, we could terraform Mars. We could turn a dead world into a living one. This isn't happening next year. This isn't happening in our lifetime. But one day, Mars could be the first second home for humanity. And it all starts with Starship. This is bigger than one company, bigger than NASA. This is about humanity taking control of its own destiny. The people who first built airplanes weren't thinking about commercial airlines. The people who built Apollo weren't thinking about permanent space stations. But their work laid the foundation for everything that came next. Starship is not the end goal. It's the starting point. When the Wright brothers flew for the first time in 1903, nobody imagined the 100,000 flights that take off every day now. The New York Times even published an editorial titled Flying Machines, which do not fly 2 months before their successful test flight, predicted it would take 1 to 10 million years for humans to develop a flying machine. They were laughed at, called delusional, just like the first computers were called useless, just like the Starship program is called a fantasy today. But history doesn't wait for permission. The impossible only stays impossible until someone does it. One day, people will look back at Starship the same way. Look up at the night sky. Every civilization in history has gazed at the stars and wondered. For thousands of years, humans have dreamed of going beyond this world. Some of the greatest minds in history tried to figure out how. In 1926, Robert Goddard launches the first liquid-fueled rocket. In 1944, the German V2 becomes the first human-made object to reach space. 1957, Sputnik kicks off the space race. 1969, Neil Armstrong sets foot on the moon. 1997, the first Mars rover Sojourner lands on the Red Planet. 2008, NASA confirms frozen water on Mars. 2023, Starship launches for the first time. Every single one of these moments was a step toward the next. A relay race of human progress, with each generation passing the baton to the next. And now, it's our turn. In 1903, The Wright brothers' plane flew for just 12 seconds. That was enough. We went from the first flight to the first moon landing in just 66 years. And now, we're seeing the exact same pattern with spaceflight. The first planes weren't built for commercial travel. The first rockets weren't built for colonies. But that's how progress works. It compounds. It accelerates. The biggest mistake we make is assuming that progress happens in a straight line. It doesn't. Technology compounds. One discovery builds on another, pushing us forward faster and faster. And now, space technology is on that same exponential curve. One of the biggest criticisms of space exploration is this: why go to space when we have so many problems on Earth? It's a fair question, but there's just one problem. If you think space is draining Earth's resources, let me show you something. A Falcon 9 launch emits roughly 300 tons of CO2, which is comparable to an Airbus A380 flying from London to Beijing. And the yearly CO2 emission of the space launches is less than 3% of what the aviation industry produces in a single day. What about money? NASA's entire budget? $25 billion. The US military budget? Over $800 billion. What the world spends on tobacco each year? Over $900 billion. Fast food? Over $800 billion. We spend 69 times more money on fast food and cigarettes than on exploring the entire universe. So tell me again how space is the problem. NASA's budget is less than 0.5% of US federal spending. The entire SpaceX Starship program costs less than half of even that. And let's not forget, space technology has already saved millions of lives. You like GPS, weather forecasting, emergency response satellites? You can thank space exploration for that. If we want to fight climate change, we need more space technology, not less. And let's be real, if we shut down every space program tomorrow, it wouldn't fix poverty, or war, or climate change, but it would destroy one of our greatest tools for solving them. Exploring space isn't taking away from Earth, it's giving us new ways to protect it. So the question was never why go to space. The real question is, why haven't we done more with what we already have? Okay, but what about this argument? Space is just a playground for billionaires. In reality, SpaceX is slashing costs and making space more accessible than ever. As of January 2025, a Falcon 9 launch is estimated to cost as low as around $27 million for a standard payload to low Earth orbit. And a Starship launch is estimated to cost under $10 million, hundreds of times cheaper than NASA's new SLS rocket. Every day, more and more companies and organizations are able to afford their own part of space, all thanks to the continued effort of a lot of smart and hard-working people. We're going from a world where space was reserved for governments and billionaires, to a future where it's for everyone. One day, going to space will be as normal as flying across the Earth. Space belongs to all of us. It always has. And the people who argue against space exploration, they're making the same argument that was made about exploring new continents, flying across oceans, building the first computers. The same argument, over and over again. And every time, history proved them wrong. Earth has been our home for 200,000 years. But if history has taught us anything, no home lasts forever. We like to think we're different, that our civilization will be the exception. But the reality, it won't. This planet has seen 5 mass extinctions. The difference is, this time, we know what might be coming. In the future, we may have the ability to reliably stop the next asteroid. But right now, we don't. We have no defense against a supervolcano. We are destabilizing the very planet we depend on. And one day, Earth may no longer be our home. However, we are also the first generation in history that can do something about it. The first species that can step beyond its home world and choose its own future. But we might also be the last generation that gets the chance. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If we don't do this, no one else will. The stars do not wait for us. Either we become an interplanetary species, or we stay here forever, waiting for the next disaster to wipe us out. But we're not just going to sit here and watch it happen, are we? Think about this moment. Right now, we are witnessing something that will be remembered for centuries, if not for millennia. The moment humanity stopped dreaming about space and actually moved in. Some say we are the middle child of history, born too late to explore Earth, born too early to explore the stars. But that's not true. We are not the middle. We are the bridge. We are the generation standing at the crossroads, between an earthbound civilization and an interplanetary one. This is happening. Right now, in our lifetime. Most people live their lives focused on the next day, the next paycheck, the next shareholder meeting, the next election cycle. But history is built in centuries. Love, the kind of love that changes history, is about sacrifice. It's about planting trees whose shade we may never sit under. It's about building a future we may never live to see, but knowing that someone we love will. The world we live in today exists because of the people who built things they would never see finished. Progress is not about what benefits us today. It's about what we leave behind for those who come next. One day, someone will look back at this moment. Maybe they'll be sitting in a city on Mars, breathing air that wasn't there before. Maybe they'll be on a ship heading further into the stars. And they'll ask, how did this all begin? And the answer will be, right here, right now. This was the moment everything changed. There was a time when crossing the ocean was unthinkable. A time when flight was a fantasy and touching the moon was a fool's dream. But every great leap forward begins the same way, with someone standing at the edge of the unknown, staring into the distance, and daring to ask, what if? And now, here we are, standing on the shores of the greatest unknown we have ever faced. Not because it is easy, not because it is safe, but because it is in us, woven into the fabric of who we are. We were never meant to stay in one place. Every step we take, every horizon we chase, every boundary we break, it's all led to this. Love is about moving forward, about never giving up on the people we care about. And humanity is one big, messy, beautiful love story of exploration, of resilience, of chasing the impossible together. And maybe, just maybe, one day, it won't just be astronauts going to space. It could be you. Now, the next horizon is waiting. In 1,000 years, when our descendants look back at us, will they say we were the ones who made it happen? This is our frontier.